The history of Australian surfing. Australians and the ocean have had a love affair forever. Long before boards arrived, Indigenous Australians were at home in the surf, swimming, paddling and body surfing the powerful waves of the coast. Early settlers noted how skilled First Nations people were at riding waves, sometimes even using bark or canoes to glide in through the surf. For them, the sea was food, culture and connection, a relationship that shaped thousands of years before modern surfing took root. By the early 1900s, beach culture was just beginning to take shape. Daytime sea bathing was only just legalised, and surf lifesaving clubs sprang up to keep the public safe as crowds flocked to beaches like Bondi, Coogee and Manly. Body surfers tested themselves in the breakers, and a few adventurous types tried standing on long timber planks. Tommy Walker became famous for headstands on waves, proof that Australians were already experimenting with wave riding long before the sport exploded. Then came the spark. In the summer of 1914, Hawaiian Olympian Duke Kahanamoku visited Sydney. At Freshwater Beach, he stunned onlookers by gliding effortlessly across the waves on a solid timber board, even carrying a teenage girl, Isabel Letham, on his shoulders in a tandem ride. The crowd roared with amazement. Duke left behind more than just his board. He left inspiration. Within weeks, young locals began imitating his style, and what had been a seaside curiosity became a national obsession. Through the 1920s and 30s, personalities like Claude West and Snowy McAllister turned surfing from a spectacle into proper competition. Hollow timber boards, inflatable mats and surf skis were introduced, though boards were still heavy and rides mostly straight to shore. Surf carnivals became a central part of beach life, with life-saving drills, races and surfboard events drawing big crowds. Everything changed in 1956. Visiting American surfers brought lighter Malibu boards to the Melbourne Olympic Surf Carnival. Unlike the cumbersome toothpicks, these boards were manoeuvrable, faster and allowed surfers to trim across the wave rather than ride it straight in. Australians were instantly hooked. The Malibu sparked a design revolution, and surfing's tempo changed forever. By the early 1960s, surfing was booming. Foam and fiberglass boards became widely available, light and easy to handle. In 1964, Sydney's Manly Beach hosted the first ever World Surfing Championships. A crowd of 65,000 watched as Midget Farrelly and Phyllis O'Donnell, both Australians, claimed the men's and women's titles. Australia had announced itself to the world as a surfing powerhouse. Then came the shortboard revolution. Surfers like Nat Young and Bob McTavish cut boards shorter, thinned out the rails and reshaped the bottoms, creating a new style of surfing. Faster, sharper and more expressive. Surfers weren't just gliding anymore, they were carving radical turns and attacking the face of the wave. The youth counterculture of the late 1960s fused with this new style, and surfing gained its own distinct Australian identity. The 1970s cemented surfing as culture, not just sport. Board riders clubs gave local communities a sense of belonging. Tracks magazine gave surfers their own voice. Albie Falzon's film, Morning of the Earth, turned surfing into a global dream of freedom, travel and living simply. And in coastal sheds at Torquay in the Gold Coast, surfers stitched wetsuits and cut board shorts, creating brands like Rip Curl, Quiksilver and Billabong, companies that would go on to define global surf style. Professional surfing emerged, with Australians like Peter Townsend and Rabbit Bartholomew hoisting early world titles. The 80s and 90s brought dominance and design breakthroughs. Mark Richards claimed 4 consecutive world titles on his twin fins. Simon Anderson invented the 3-fin thruster, a design that became the global standard. Tom Carroll, Barton Lynch, Damien Hardman all added their names to Australia's trophy hall. Then came Mark Occy Lupo's emotional comeback in 1999, one of the sport's most celebrated stories. The new millennium continued the run. Joel Parkinson and Mick Fanning both claimed world crowns. With Fanning famously surviving a shark attack live on television at Jeffreys Bay in 2015 and walking away unscathed. Meanwhile, the Gold Coast's engineered superbank transformed into one of the longest and most perfect waves on Earth. On the women's side, Layne Beachley broke barriers with 7 world titles, before Stephanie Gilmore raised the bar even higher with 8. Tyler Wright added 2 more, proving that Australian women were leading the sport globally. And when surfing made its Olympic debut at Tokyo in 2021, Owen Wright proudly stood on the podium with a bronze medal, the first Olympic medal for surfing in Australia's history. Today, millions of Australians surf, before work, after school and on weekends. Surfing drives tourism, fuels coastal economies, shapes music and fashion, and keeps the national heartbeat synced with the tides. From Freshwater to Bells Beach, Snapper Rocks to Margaret River, Australia didn't just adopt surfing, it helped reinvent it. And the next chapter? It's already lining up out the back.